It would seem that the topic is education, including appropriate education of young people. I prefer to refer to young people as young leadership because the understanding is at some point every one of them has the capacity to step into their own form of leadership. And I would be proud to have been their teacher. And I have no reason to think that anybody I was ever in a position to be a teacher in regards to was anything less than a genius in their own manner. This is, hold on a second. So those are anniversaries on reports, which is what I've done since I have been in a position where I'm no longer allowed to teach students. See, I do understand there was punitive action against me for attempting to teach the Constitution to students of a foreign country. That's what I had been asked to do. But the reason that I bring this up is because A, I was the first person in my family to ever try to go to college. B, I understood when I got accepted to college early admission, it was based on the merits I had demonstrated in the application process. C, my understanding is I had enough financing to complete college. But D, I did not finish my undergraduate degree. I did not finish my undergraduate degree, and I understand now it was because of an act of political reprisal for what I did, because during my first year at college, I attempted to join the student government, and I succeeded, and I was elected to student government, and I took a position on a topic that, while unpopular, was successful. And the ramifications of my success did not sit well with whoever it was that was speculating on the financing connected with my education. So I was deemed to not be as financially capable and did not end up finishing college. But I ended up beginning a job as a journalist and later became a newspaper editor and traveled to the Middle East as part of a self-financed study, and at certain points was in a mentor role with students who were in college, sometimes close to my age, at the newspaper, and also would do speaking at universities around Illinois on topics related to what I'd covered in my job as an editor as well as my travel abroad. Now, I bring this up because to this day, I've never obtained a bachelor's degree. And so I know that when I went to Honduras to teach, I did not have a degree, but I was told I did not need a bachelor's degree for the school I was teaching at because my life experience was considered to be enough to merit consideration of me as a first language speaker of English to teach English as a second language in a full immersion environment. And this is important because I now understand that the class that I would have graduated with at college had other obligations that I do not believe they knew about at the time they were incurred. And this is another matter that needs to be addressed. It's something that no one should ever have to go through again. It's 2021. In 2023, it'll be 25 years since that graduation. I am hoping that we can forestall a further perpetuation of the processes that were implemented during that time frame that has created a generation that, while we should be taking responsibility and making very substantial changes to assure that past mistakes are not replicated. Seems instead to have either been invisibilized or have agreed to co conspire with a cover up that has created a younger generation that did not have the same standards when it came to a determination of what it meant to have certain kinds of professional expectations or qualifications. And now I am concerned that we have broached an area that we are not going to be able to sustain anyway. And without an actual exhumation of all that was denied a life in our engagement with generations of young people, including a responsibility for the manners in which influences in their life were allowed to be mischaracterized and subjected to cruelty, as opposed to actually providing critical thinking development that allowed for meaningful critique of the social and political implications of certain decisions and their determinations. I'm really hoping that we can move forward on this with the candor that is necessary in full realization of the profundity. If I'm correct, there are people that are going to have to deal very forthrightly very soon about the biological engineering and cyber engineering that has occurred with young people. And then we're going to have to deal with what it meant that certain people involved with that, in one manner or another, including as their teachers, expected to be compensated based upon it. I don't believe these options are any longer available in the way people previously thought they were, in one way or another. But the question is, what do we do in the stead of delivering on a praxis that should never have been allowed to develop in the way it did, anyhow? When I was young and in fourth grade, I had to take an IQ test. Apparently, I did very well on this IQ test. And the next thing you know, I'm in a class that's different from the one I had been in before. I'm going through things I hadn't gone through before, including dealing with class, dealing with concepts of what it means that certain people, based upon what their parents do, have access to material resources. I don't because of what my parents do. Dealing with the kind of consciousness that comes with seeing the world in a different view, based upon the fact that I did not have a number of members of my family that had a formal background in higher education or certain kinds of arts or proclivities that would allow for people to see things in a certain manner. I had a different perspective. But around the same time that this was happening, I also remember coming home from school every day and watching the Iran-Contra hearings on TV. I would watch them sometimes with my father, who came home from work very shortly after I got home from school. I knew something was wrong, and it was important. What's going on in Congress right now is nothing comparable. Iran-Contra didn't go anywhere close to far enough. It didn't even scratch the surface. But young people seeing what's going on and then understanding all kinds of stuff is supposed to be made confidential. That an entire group of people from another part of the world are allowed to be slandered and caricaturized in manners we should be teaching people are not acceptable. It's also not acceptable. It did something to my character to have to watch an officer in the Marine Corps get dressed down in front of Congress, knowing that my father was in the Marine Corps in a context where he was the minority, because the majority of the people in the military he worked with were not Marines. It did. Maybe it's one of the reasons why I keep hearing that meme on that crypto they've got running while I've been completely cut off from an actual conversation that says you're the only one that lived. What does that mean? I've heard it for 3 years now. Were there others like me that were supposed to be test subjects? Did the rest of them die? That's important, not just to me, but to everybody I formerly taught, the adults and the children, all of those future leaders that at some point knew me. If there's a justifiable reason to call me out and challenge me for my character or my comportment or something I've said and done, then do it formally. You deny each of them a chance of justice if in fact I am guilty of a wrong and it is not addressed and they are not provided with a means by which to heal and also evaluate their own sense of righteousness and potential rage if they believe they've been aggrieved. But if you don't, and you just cover it up and expect people to put their children in front of a computer so that they can be run through a program on a box that's harvesting their hormones and targeting their energetic centers in order to excitate and behaviorally condition them, those options are not going to be available for very much longer anyway. I don't think the problem was ever me. But there are problems, and we need to address them.